Something funny, Alice? You care to share it with everybody? Go ahead, Alice.
No, it's just that Tom feels my computer's a little loud.
Yeah. If you're hearing the equivalent of the HVAC system for the entire Pentagon, that is Alice's computer desperately trying to cool itself off as it has a reactor core meltdown, as it does with every show. If you listen to every show, guys, and you're wondering, oh my God, did I leave something on here? This incredible, I hear a hiss. Is there a gas leak in the house? No. Don't worry about it. It's not a gas leak. It's not on you. It is Alice's computer. The absolute loudest computer in the history of all computers. It's like the opening scene to the Rudolph from 1964. Looks like there wouldn't be a Christmas one year.
Now that I'm crying off
Oh,
my
Santa.
makeup.
No one wants a skinny Santa. Yes, and so that is Alice. And so as with every show, as I'm hearing her huge leaf blower over there, I've got soundproof deadening panels in this room. I've got good microphones, all sorts of good equipment. But it doesn't really matter because Alice brings in her snow blower during the show, which gets picked up. And so this is excellent. So this is. And guys, and I was listening to the Blind Mike podcast today. It's Mike Geary's podcast. He's one of the show members of the Kirk Minahan show. If you guys don't know, you'll see that's who that is. And and it just occurred. What did it occur to me? Why am I bringing that up?
I don't know. You told me that you wanted to talk about
Well, that's
the Blind
different.
Mike project.
That's different.
Okay.
It's wow, Alice. How dismissive are you?
I'm not dismissive.
No,
I'm just telling you. You didn't tell me what you wanted to say.
Oh,
about
that's right.
it,
That's
just
right.
that you wanted to.
No,
talk
I was
about
hearing
it.
those guys because it's him and this guy Craig. He's the co-host.
Mm-hmm.
And Craig, you guys both did Jerry's show.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Was he on your S list too, or just
Nobody's on
Carano?
my ass. I'm not mad at anyone.
Just
in the
Carano
world.
you still hate.
I have no anger towards any other being in the world.
Okay, so anyway, and I was listening to Mike talk about he just turned 30, about possibly getting married, and his co-host Craig was talking about that he's been married for a few years. I don't think they have. Maybe they have kids. I'm not sure. But they were talking about a celebrity who's getting a divorce and how, like, and Craig was saying, well, I don't think my wife would be vindictive if we got divorced. I don't think she'd try to garner my paycheck and this and that. And Mike talking about, well, that's how you know, that's what you think. You think you know somebody, and he said, well, I think if me and my girlfriend, Mike said, guy around 30, been dating a few years. Me and my girlfriend, if we broke up, I think we'd be amicable. And so, the funny thing is that you don't really know. First of all, nobody's going to be amicable. Most guys, in fact, are preset to blow the bridge when it is not passable anymore. So that's not going to be amicable. And also, it feels better. It's nice and clean when you've rigged the relationship with TNT and just blow it up as it's being severed anyway. But anyway, I just thought about how you know. We've been married 11 years.
Yes.
How you know somebody and how you think you could know somebody and how if you think you might know them, etc. And to me, you're a pretty easy read, Alice. I pretty much know when you're half-assing something, or I mean, you're a really good wife and the better of the two persons. But I can tell when you're not into something. Like famously, you would half acre it back when we were big drinkers. When you didn't feel like going to the Packy for one reason or another, so you just like grab something there and just show me that, hey, this is what happens. You want me to go and I'm not into it? This is what you get. You get
That's not true.
You get the
all,
bargain aisle Zima, and you know what? And chartreuse, and
That's
there you go.
First of all,
and
not
Midori's,
true.
in case
And also, this whole thing is you projecting because you're the biggest half-asser of stuff, including like loading the dishwasher.
That's not true.
cleaning
I'm
things
good
up.
at that. You just you're psychotic about this. But anyway, this is the thing. So today, because Alice has her snow machine on, and the largest machine noise thing in the world. The kind of noise that I can't really take out of the podcast when I'm done because it'll clip other noises I need to. So it kind of has to stay in. You've probably noticed it since she decided to buy a Windows machine, which I thought was fantastic because you know how good they are. Driven by Windows is that 98 Millennium XP. What is that, Alice?
It's Windows 10, honey.
Windows 10, good. So she has this. So it's a loud breathing machine. It sounds like I sound like when I go up a flight of stairs. So that's fine. So then I say to her, Alice, okay, you've made sure you closed all the windows and restarted, right? Because she
Which I did.
likes to live dangerously. So she will not do that kind of thing. She likes to live dangerously. She is a 3 burners on in the stove and the 4th one just the gas is on kind of person. This is how she lives. Some people need, it's like the Hurt Locker. People need absolute trauma around them to be able to operate smoothly, and that's what Alice likes. She likes the chaos. So she said, so I said, you restarted, right? So I was hoping to get a few seconds without her snow machine making all sorts of noise, and she said, oh yes, and it was such a transparent, really half-assed, really canard of a blatant lie that I was almost insulted. This is just while we were starting the show. This is why we were laughing at the beginning. And I was insulted thinking, wow, that is really lazy. You didn't even give me the respect to throw a little, drama into it. Act the part. If you're going to lie to me, at least have enough respect, Alice, to sell it. But that was not even, oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I did. Yes, I did. Absolutely. Yes, just like I did. Yes, I just finished all the P90X tapes this morning, CDs this morning. As a matter of fact, I'm all set. So anyway, that was
true that I'm a bad liar because I'm a really honest person.
Okay.
It's true. I'm not a good liar. And I also, you can see what I'm thinking on my face at any given time.
I can see what you're thinking on your face, and I can see, because you're so often displeased with me, I know that what I'm getting broadcast to me is different than what's happening across your eyes. In which Alice has this. She's half Serbian and then half American, whatever that is. And so the Serbian part of her, which I really love, and I think it's lovely, and it's lovely people, excellent. But there is part of her that she doesn't, I think, realize is not acceptable in the Western world. A certain kind of look that tells me that you're going to try to kill me at night. It's like how Gollum looked at Frodo. You know, he might have been jumping around and joyful. Anyway, so that's that, and that's Alice's thing. The thing that I brought up about Mike was the Blind Mike podcast, Blind Mike Project, it's called, is his friend Craig. So this is interesting, Alice. We've been through this. His friend Craig, friends of his in-law or whatever, they've had a dog who's 14 years old. Now, according to him, the dog probably, in the last 4 years, has probably not been great. The expiration date was probably somewhere around 2017 that it was time to call it a night with Mr. Pickles or whatever. But they didn't. But now they've decided, the owner of the dog has decided that they're going to do it like Wednesday at 5 p.m. So, like, Mr. Pickles has and they're having somebody come in to the house. So it's not as if
you can do that.
Yeah, apparently you can. I mean, I don't know if this is a dude named Chip or an actual.
Is this going to be a lethal injection, or is it going to be like?
No,
okay.
they talked about shooting
or something.
No, they talked about that though. He's armed, so no. But so anyway, so they're bringing in the executioner.
Okay.
So Craig is going to go over and say hi to the dog before the executioner comes. To say goodbye, because he liked the dog. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that other people are as well. Going to be like, Mr. Pickles is going to get a day full of attention.
It's a celebration of life.
Well, but he doesn't know what's going on. He's like, everybody's being really nice to me today. It's like, this is really...
seeing all my favorite people
haven't
been here in so long.
Yeah, that's the dog walker from 6 years ago here to say hi to me. And they're scratching me. Like, nobody scratches me anymore. This is really great. And I wonder if, it's when you're driving a dog to the vet to euthanize a dog, like we've had to do, obviously. I ever wonder if part of the dog is thinking, this doesn't feel round trippy. Like the driver and the passenger, both people I know, are not doing the usual banter. There's something up, and I'm feeling like it may involve me. I'm not sure, but the energy is very different going on here. So I wonder if Mr. Pickles realizes that as everybody's coming in, Craig, a human being, to say, he's not going to break the news to him, and he's just going to be really nice. That you've been a great dog, Mr. Pickles. Oh, well, thank you. You've been a great person too. Anyway, it's just an odd thing. Like when your last few times saying hi to the dog, unless the dog's like out of it, and then in which case it's probably easier, because then it's like, okay, this is done. But when the dog is just like Mr. Pickles is, it's just been playing with the house's money now for 4 years,
right? And
they're like waiting him out and saying, I don't know, like Mr. Pickles, what you're thinking, what your long-term plans are here. But the family, if you haven't noticed, is kind of ready to move on. So figure something out. And Mr. Pickles is like, I found a really comfortable niche here. I've kind of hit my stride in my waning years. And this is fine. But anyway, so he's, the dog is, he's probably gone now. It's, we've all lost some good dogs. We did the worst thing in the world, of course, because I had Sky, and then we brought Pepper in while we had Sky. So her last few months were spent being harassed by a psychotic puppy who's turned into an absolute angel right over there. Pepper. That's A.
Okay.
2. I don't know, and I wonder if this is, and this is, by the way, for you guys wondering when the actual show's starting. It's starting now. So
okay.
So those of you who have been burning through, once again, you're not talking a whole lot else.
Okay, yeah. Well, somebody on Twitter commented
that
yesterday,
hold on.
Once I started talking, that you then speak louder and continue over me. Well, so it's not like I can really just jump in anywhere. You just,
No, hold on. So I want to. So here's the thing, and that's why I mentioned that. I know you've been lovely. Thank you. Okay, so here's the deal. Pete Buttigieg and Chasten Buttigieg. What?
Isn't it Chasen?
Do you really? You felt that it's... What did you, by the way, as I was listening to the Blind Mike Project in my headphones on our 6-hour drive home, what did you make me take my headphones off for a moment as I'm lost in a podcast, escaping the hell that is the car full of screaming kids?
Yes, Tom drives the car with headphones on.
What did you, Alice?
It's weird.
Alice, what did you stop me? Make me turn my podcast off for a second and inform me of as I'm driving in the car.
I told you that an actor who was on The Wire died of an overdose. I felt
that is what's called passive-aggressive hostility. Because, Alice, if all of the actors on The Wire died of an overdose and wrote in their suicide letter that this is because of Tom Shattuck, you know that I still wouldn't care about The Wire or actors in The Wire or any of that stuff.
Well, I don't really either. It was just news that was out there that I thought maybe you'd be interested in knowing.
Does not reach the level of interrupting the podcast.
It was trending on Twitter. I was
listening to Mr. Pickles, Alice. His final
I was alone in the car with the screaming kids while you were on the podcast for what is normally a 3-hour drive, but because Tom Shattuck doesn't want any holiday weekend traffic on the highways, we avoided highways through 3 states, and it took 5.5 hours instead of 3.
Guys, listen to me. We went the whole way. We were going forward the whole way, except for about 38 seconds when we were on 93 for a second, which is where I learned my lesson. I said, nope, secondary roads. We took back roads, country roads, from Vermont through New Hampshire into Massachusetts, and evaded traffic and having to sit there and just idling and all that crap.
That's true. We spent no time in traffic.
Correct.
But
Zero
the
time.
trip took twice as long.
Correct. I beat the system, though. I beat the system, Alice.
So I was alone in the car during the trip.
You could have married somebody who would have had you in traffic, Alice, for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Wow. Hashtag blessed.
So there you go. So that's what was happening there. And so here's my thing with Pete Buttigieg and Chasten. Okay. Good for them. They've got kids. They've adopted kids. I think that's good for kids to get adopted. I think that those two will probably make great parents. Mm-hmm. I think it's wonderful. I just wonder, why does everybody have to strive to be an a-hole? Why can't somebody do something without making it distasteful and awful? So why did I see this picture of Pete and Chasten in a hospital bed?
I know, they're both wearing hospital bracelets, and they're sitting on the hospital bed together holding these two newborns.
As if it was just rock and roll time in the delivery room. And, and Chasten talked Pete, or Pete talked Chasten through the whole thing, remembering the best of the Le Mans or whatever it is now.
Well, right.
What are we doing here? What do they do? Somebody else had the kids, and then...
Right. And they're not in the pictures, by the way. The person
Which
who
is fine, I understand,
is...
but don't act as if you had the hospital birthing experience. Get out of the bed. Did they have to admit Chasten?
Well, I don't know. They were both wearing bracelets, so...
What do they get? Does everybody play make-believe now? I'd like to make-believe check us in for our make-believe birth, please, with my make-believe husband, Chasten, please. And we're going to make-believe be in the bed and hold the baby for a make-believe picture, please.
Well,
really?
Yeah. So, and it's funny because, this happened the same week that Lil Nas X announced his new album is dropping in a few weeks. And he announced it by doing a pregnancy photo shoot where he's photoshopped to look like he's pregnant, and he's showing us his bare pregnant belly. Like, you know how celebrities do these trendy photos of their pregnancy announcements?
Yes, they're not
So
good.
Lil Nas did this, right? And everybody was outraged. It was one of the things that some more of your rapper friends were, mad at him for doing. And, because it's gross and weird for him to be pretending to be a pregnant person in pictures. But Lil Nas is doing it as a joke about his album. Pete and Chasten, the Buttigiegs, were not...
okay,
go tell the kids about the delivery.
Tell the kids and tell Lampton to plug this in.
Lil Nas X is doing it as a joke, which is still weird, but it's more weird that Pete and Chasten did it not as a joke. They did it seriously. They hired a professional photographer to come take a picture of them in the hospital bed like they had a baby. That's more weird and offensive, frankly.
Yeah, it's like, wow, Chasten's still glowing. Well, I'm exhausted but relieved. Here's our bundle of... No, you don't get to have all of the everything. I'm sorry. You don't get to... I'm having the baby stuff. By the way, you're a chick. You should be angry, Alice. They're stealing...
I am. That's why I sent you this story.
They're stealing women, every woman's experience now.
Odd.
That we can all have that too. We've decided we all
and
get to have
I'm not even necessarily as ecumenical on the whole adoption thing. And I think moms are important and provide needs for kids that dads don't. That's my opinion. And vice versa. I think that dads provide things to kids that moms can't provide. And that's my opinion. Fine. But yeah, I thought the photo shoot was in incredibly poor taste and very weird. I mean, I can't imagine wanting it. But then, Noah Opinion on Twitter?
No,
Noah Smith, who's a Bloomberg opinion writer. He tweeted today, and we talked about this a little with the Texas abortion law when we were talking about, artificial wombs and once people get pregnant, if you can take it out and put it in a fake womb in the hospital, right? So he tweeted today, conservatives regularly freak out at the idea of trans men being pregnant, but if we had the technology to implant uteruses in cis men and let them bear children, wouldn't that be cool? And wouldn't many do it? I feel like the anti-trans movement contains a little bit of Luddism. So just being anti-technology and anti-progress in general. And there is, by the way, they have been working on technology to allow trans men to implant a uterus and carry a baby, or no, sorry, trans women who are born men, trans women being able to bear a baby with a fake uterus, or not a fake, but like an organ donated uterus that they put in their body and put the baby in it. But you have to take like organ donation drugs, like immune system repressing drugs the whole time because it's a thing that's foreign to your body. And you have to get it removed again afterwards. You just temporarily surgically implant a uterus in yourself and then have it there for a while so you can have the experience.
You can temporarily surgically implant that uterus all you want. You're not a woman.
Okay, but so his point,
and also
his point is though, listen, he's saying once we have that technology, won't cis men do it too? I mean, maybe gay cis men like Pete and Chasen probably might, but he's saying like, wouldn't some men just want to do it because it's a cool life experience to implant a uterus and bear a child? Is that something you'd ever feel the urge?
No guy wants to do anything to do with any of that crap.
Do you think gay men might?
No.
Like, do you think Pete and Chase? I mean, they obviously are willing to play pretend.
I think
in the
gay men,
bed.
like straight men, rightfully feel that a whole lot of that stuff is absolutely gross and want nothing to do with it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't understand like why we're trying to play the game.
But
like,
this person is presumably
to
a cis man. I'm not 100% sure, but I assume he is. And
yeah,
he's saying like, tons of men would just want to implant a uterus and have a child.
You're still somebody who implanted a uterus to try to have a child like a woman. It's still not the same. They're acting like it's absolutely the same. Yeah, it's not the same. You've had a crazy bunch of procedures and a crazy bunch of God knows the prep, God knows the side effects, and all this stuff to put a uterus into a body that is not a female body with little female birthing hips and all the other pelvis stuff that females have.
Well, I assume they have to have them by C-section because the stuff's not connected to the right.
I assume
pipelines.
I assume they're going to have their extraction surgery. But at what? Who's saying that? Yeah, no, it's just like the real thing. It's not at all. Stop it. It's craziness. It's not the real thing.
Yeah, it seems odd to me too.
Like for what? Oh yeah, so now we're really legitimate. See? It's like, no, you're not. You're just a guy who had a crazy surgery and has some weird misogynistic streak and decided to put a kid. Why is that okay for a kid, by the way?
I mean, I think surrogacy also has some of the same problems. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but surrogacy is an actual female human being doing the deal, right?
Yeah, but there's been issues where, like, where people then demand, like, if there's a birth defect, they want an abortion, and the woman who's the surrogate doesn't want to do an abortion or whatever. Like, there's problems. There are weird ethical issues that crop up when you get involved in some of these strange situations because, like,
I love
two men.
Pete and Chasen's picture also is black and white.
I know, because it's a professional photographer. It's a professional photo. That's not like they just handed the nurse the phone and were like, "Can you snap a quick picture of us?" And people do, like, rich people do hire like birth photographers to come in and take pictures of them, but it's weird that they did when they didn't give birth to anything.
Well, right, but right.
And I mean, I assume they treated the person who carried these children respectfully and everything else, but like, it's very weird.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they're fine people. I liked Buttigieg before he became just a cynical politician, but like, who checked into the hospital? Who took up a hospital bed? Did Chasten have a bed? I thought beds are, needed badly here because all the Trumpers are taking ivermectin and getting COVID.
Well, no, that's not true. But
that's the narrative that they want.
Yeah, but I assume it's like a fancy rich people hospital, and there's a nice big room, and they had multiple beds wheeled in.
We have a whole package for make believe adoptions.
They're celebrities, basically, so they, I'm sure, get special treatment and can pay for a nice fancy room and everything else. Like, isn't that just how it goes? But yeah, like, we supposedly don't have hospital beds for people. And yeah, the whole thing is gross and weird and a mess. But I don't know. I'm slightly depressed, but So you think Noah Smith is incorrect, and that there won't be a host of cisgender men wanting to have artificial?
Well, I mean, because we're terrible and we're worse than we've ever been. Maybe. All right, Alice, we've got a big situation here. An actor is in trouble. Tom Selleck is in trouble.
Okay.
So Tom Selleck, you before your time, but he was Magnum PI on TV, which was a huge hit show in the 80s. Very handsome man. Everybody's mom wanted to be romantic with Tom Selleck.
He had a mustache?
Very, not a mustache. He had the mustache.
Oh,
he was very handsome. My mother was inappropriate sometimes when she speaking about him. Okay, and he got in trouble. Not in trouble. He got attacked. He was on Rosie O'Donnell's show. He did a movie in the 90s. And Rosie O'Donnell attacked him over gun control because he was affiliated with the NRA, which he then stepped away from or something. But now we've got a problem here. Actor Tom Selleck says that Jesus Christ is responsible for all his successes in life.
What's the problem? Did you finish reading?
The Emmy and Golden Globe award-winning actor, known for roles in such hits as The Closer, Blue Bloods, Magnum PI, credits his success solely to his faith in Jesus Christ. However, his faith has not always been where it is today. Selleck acknowledges that his journey as a Christian has been pretty rocky throughout the years. His career has come a long way. Before he and his stash became culturally influential, Selleck was a college basketball player with occasional roles in Pepsi commercials and episodes of The Dating Game. In his younger years, he was working on a degree in business and had plans for a management training program with United Airlines when he decided to get serious about an acting career. After graduating from college, 20th Century Fox offered him an acting contract, but God wasn't calling him to acting then. He decided to listen to God's call and go into the Army. Selleck learned the values of the U.S. military from his parents at an early age. Those lessons bestowed by his mother and father shaped him into not only an actor, but also a veteran and a man of integrity. I didn't know he was a veteran. During the Vietnam War, Selleck was issued draft orders. He joined the California National Guard in the 160th Infantry Regiment. He served from 67 to 73. He later appeared in California National Guard recruiting posters. The military left a strong impression on Selleck, and he looks back on his service with pride. I'm a veteran. I'm proud of it, Selleck said. I was a sergeant in the U.S. Army Infantry, National Guard, Vietnam era. Oh, so he wasn't in Vietnam, I guess. We're all brothers and sisters in that sense. After the Army, he came back to acting. It was his role as Thomas Magnum that changed his life. Even after getting his acting role, he continued to listen to God. As good as this business has been to me, that's not what life is about. Life is about more important things. You know, we've all struggled as we get successful in this business to balance that. I certainly have, Selleck said. He took another big break in acting in 1980 when he got married. His success, he credits all his success in life to Jesus Christ, who he claims as his Lord and Savior. Selleck says he always tried to conduct himself in an ethical way, and yet he attributes his fortune to Jesus Christ, although it is an individual's heart that makes plans for a lifetime. Yada yada.
So what did he do wrong?
He's trending on Twitter because people are mad at him because he is saying that he owes all his success to Jesus Christ.
What's wrong with that?
Because, here we go. Here's one woman. Tom Selleck is a Trump supporter who tries to get elderly people to do reverse mortgages with AIG. Him and his John Bolton mustache can F off.
I don't get what. Okay. Like, so they're mad that he's in reverse mortgage commercials?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is he a Trump supporter?
I don't know. I don't know if he is. I don't know if he was. I mean, I think he's quieted down since he started getting in trouble. So, no. So, because he's saying to Jesus Christ rather than just saying that...
He got ahead because he's a straight, white, privileged man or something?
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, good for him. I don't honestly, like, I'm having trouble understanding how crediting your success to Jesus Christ is a problem. Like, even if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, I don't get why it would upset you that somebody else.
Well, here's the problem.
Here's
the problem. People hate him because he's been a Republican. He was a Republican before it was popular to be out there and be a Republican. He was a spokesman for the NRA in the 90s. Pretty sure it was the 90s. And so he's been a bad, mean Republican.
So
he's also
evil. So he can't bring up Jesus Christ because they feel he's evil?
Right. Right. And Rosie O'Donnell jumped at him on him in the 90s out of nowhere. Maybe I have that, actually. Let me see if I can find that.
Right, but I think that the reason that people are so extreme against the NRA is because the NRA has such a militant strength, especially a power in Washington, to veto or to stronghold any sensible gun law. They have been against every sensible gun law until yesterday, including trigger locks, so that children...
Now, this is Tom Selleck. He's on there to pitch a movie, and she's sandbagging him about guns.
Which there are 500 a year that die, don't get killed.
I'm not a spokesman for the NRA. In fact, all I can tell you is I was a member when I was a kid. I was a junior NRA member. I learned firearm safety. And from what I see in the last 3 months, they don't do a lot of the stuff that you assume they do.
Well,
they are for trigger locks. They're for a lot of things, as long as they're voluntary.
Well, they're against the registering of guns. We have to register cars. Why shouldn't we register guns so that when a crime is committed, we can trace who has owned it?
You know, I understand how you feel. This is a really contentious issue, probably as contentious and potentially as troubling as the abortion issue in this country. All I can tell you is it rushes to pass legislation at a time of national crisis or mourning. I don't really think are proper. And more importantly, nothing in any of this legislation would have done anything to prevent that awful tragedy in Littleton. What I see in the work I've done with kids is a troubling direction in our culture, and where I see consensus, which is what I think we ought to concentrate on in our culture, is, look, nobody argues anymore whether they're conservatives or liberal, whether our society is going in the wrong direction. They may argue trying to quantify how far it's gone wrong or why it's gone that far wrong, whether it's guns or...
Came out and say,
don't put words in my mouth. I'm not a spokesperson. Remember how calm you said you'd be? Now you're questioning my humanity.
No, not your humanity. I think you're a very humane man.
Okay,
I'm saying that if you say...
I disagree with you, but I think you're being
But you can't say that I will not take responsibility for anything the NRA represents if you're saying that you're going to do an ad for the NRA. You can't say that. Do you think you can?
Look, there's, you know, you're carefully skirting the issue. It's an act of moral vanity, Rosie, to assume that someone who disagrees with your political agenda to solve our problems cares any less or is any less
I never said you cared less.
Well, so anyway, that was the coming out time where she sandbagged him. He went on there to talk about a movie, but she wasn't. So there you go. That's where he came out as a gun guy. And I guess that was in the heels of Columbine. But there you go. I also think that Tom Selleck, he represents kind of the last full wave, at least on TV, of real big alpha men being the heroes. He was strong. He was handsome. He was chivalrous. He dated all sorts of beautiful women. He was charming. He was morally centered. I mean, he is a person. Magnum was a person on TV, and there were a lot of spin-offs of Magnum, a bunch of spin-offs. Mm-hmm. He is a person that represents a kind of man who is not revered anymore, or certainly not on the coasts. He's not a skinny jean wearing pansy who carries a 4-pack into a Brooklyn loft party. That wasn't, he was a man's man.
So it's more really that the people who are mad at him right now are mad at him more because of their own mental issues surrounding masculinity, it sounds like.
I think there's probably a bunch of them. You see, Rosie O'Donnell couldn't get her mind out, couldn't stop. Mm-hmm. Because he represented the NRA, and they represented guns, and guns, of course, are bad and evil. Mm-hmm. And those men, like him, of course, who are pro-guns, are bad and evil. And so that was just, how it was. I mean, just look at the...
Right.
I know the Hollywood thing is old.
So, I mean, yeah, it's true, but I think that it's sort of an interesting thing about, why people are so mad at him and about, what's going on with them mentally, because I think there's really like a crisis of masculinity in the country and in our culture generally. And I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think it's very healthy. And another story that I was reading today that is in the Wall Street Journal that also was making me think, like, I don't know what is going to become of men in the United States of America right now, is this Wall Street Journal piece that came out today that's about the rapidly dropping number of men who are attending college. And especially accelerated by the pandemic. The number of men enrolled at 2- and 4-year colleges has fallen behind women by record levels in a widening education gap across the U.S. And it's a problem and continues to be a problem because there are no programs to get more men to enroll in college, especially white men, but not men in general. There's not, there are programs to get more women into colleges. There are special scholarships. There are, groups that help you with your college essay and remind you to get your applications in. There are things, and for men, these things don't exist. But there are fewer of them applying. Many colleges in states where they allow schools to sort of pick and choose, by race and gender, they're actually having to admit more men in order to have sort of a balance. But in states like in California, they're not allowed to look at race and gender in admissions. So they don't, it's down to 40% of the students are men. So at the close of the 2021 academic year, women made up 59.5% of college students, an all-time high, and men 40.5%, according to enrollment data from National Student Clearinghouse, a nonprofit research group. U.S. colleges and universities had 1.5 million fewer students overall compared with 5 years ago, and men accounted for 71% of the decline. So there's 1.5 million fewer college students than there were 5 years ago. And, almost...
So that's pre-pandemic.
Right. This education gap, which holds at both 2- and 4-year colleges, has been slowly widening for 40 years. The divergence increases at graduation. After 6 years of college, 65% of women in the U.S. who started a 4-year university in 2012 received diplomas by 2018, compared with 59% of men during the same period, according to the U.S. Department of Education. In the next few years, 2 women will earn a college degree for every man if the trend continues, says Douglas Shapiro, Executive Director of the Research Center at the National Student Clearinghouse. No reversal is in sight. Women increased their lead over men in college applications for this school year. To 3.8 million to 2.8 million by nearly a percentage point compared with the previous year, according to the Common Application, a nonprofit that transmits applications to more than 900 schools. Women make up 49% of the college-age population in the U.S., according to the Census Bureau. So there's actually fewer women than men at college age.
They're way overrepresented.
They're way overrepresented. Men are falling behind remarkably fast, said Thomas Mortensen, a senior scholar at the Pell Institute. American colleges, which are embroiled in debates over racial and gender equality and working on ways to reduce sexual assault and harassment of women on campus, have yet to reach a consensus on what might slow the retreat of men from higher education.
Whoa. Read that sentence again, please.
I
believe that we've...
they answered part of the question.
I would say so.
American colleges, which are embroiled in debates over racial and gender equality and working on ways to reduce sexual assault and harassment of women on campus, have yet to reach a consensus on what might slow the retreat of men from higher education.
Can't imagine.
Some schools are quietly trying programs to enroll more men, but there is scant campus support for spending resources to boost male attendance and retention. The gender enrollment disparity among nonprofit college is widest at private 4-year schools, where the proportion of women during the 2021 school year grew to an average of 61%, a record high. Some of the schools extend offers to a higher percentage of male applicants, trying to get a closer balance. Is there a thumb on the scale for boys? Absolutely, said Jennifer Delahunty, a college enrollment consultant. She said this kind of tacit affirmative action for boys has become higher education's dirty little secret, practiced but not publicly acknowledged by many private universities where the gender balance has gone off kilter. It's unfortunate we're not giving this issue air and sun so we can address it. At Baylor University, where the undergraduate student body is 60% female, the admission rate for men last year was 7 percentage points higher than for women. Every student has to meet Baylor's admission standards to earn admission, said the school's assistant vice president. But classes are shaped to balance several variables, including gender. She said she found that girls more closely attended to their college applications than boys, making sure transcripts are delivered on time. Baylor created a males and moms communication campaign a few years ago to keep high school boys on track, she said. Among the messages to mothers in the campaign, she said, "At the dinner table tonight, Mom, we need you to talk about getting your high school transcripts in." Race and gender can't be considered in admission decisions at California's public universities. The proportion of male undergraduates at UCLA fell to 41% in the fall of 2020 from 45% in 2013. Over the same period, undergraduate enrollment expanded by nearly 3,000 students. Out of those new spots, 9 out of 10 went to women. "We do not see male applicants as being less competitive than female applicants," the president said, "but fewer men are applying. The college gender gap cuts across race, geography, and economic background. For the most part, white men, once the predominant group on American campuses, no longer hold a statistical edge in enrollment rates. Enrollment rates for poor and working class white men are lower than those of young Black, Latino, and Asian men from the same economic backgrounds," according to an analysis of census data by the Pell Institute. No college wants to tackle the issue under the glare of gender politics. "The conventional view on campuses," Ms. Delahunty said, "is that men make more money, hold higher positions, and why should we give them a little shove from high school to college? But the stakes are too high to ignore. If you care about our society and if you care about women, you have to care about boys too. The pandemic accelerated the trend. Nearly 700,000 fewer students enrolled in colleges in spring 2021 compared with 2019, with 78% fewer men." So this is incredible to me, these statistics. It's unbelievable to me that millions fewer men are going to college than ever before.
So a couple of things on this. Well, one, well, like, what are they doing?
Well, yeah, that's my first concern.
Believe
some
me,
of them are like working. This whole article that I recommend people read, goes through, some of them have taken landscaping jobs, but a lot of them are living with their parents still.
Not good.
And dealing cryptocurrency on the internet.
Well,
could be good, could be bad, could go either way. But I don't know. I think this is... I think that there are probably a lot of men who do not get much out of college.
Well, okay, and also... you're going to a place that is marketing precisely against you.
Right.
You're the bad one. If you're a cis man, and cis doesn't even effing exist, but we'll use it for purposes. If you're a straight man, you are guilty.
Right.
You are the circled item in many classes in these schools.
Right. Why would you put up with that? Especially with, like, the
and
campus
just listen
sexual
how it's
assault
done. Just
stuff.
listen. The people say, professionals, the president. No, we're gonna enough of white men doing things. We're gonna find a female vice president. We're gonna get a female to Secretary of the Interior.
Yeah.
We're gonna do this. We're gonna get a gay Secretary of Education. We're gonna go get a female. It's they're making it very obvious. I mean, this is misandry on a real and large level.
Right.
I mean, this idea because you have built-in badness, they're saying to men. You have built-in badness, absolutely. And even the stuff that you thought wasn't bad, no, it is. We've gone back and done a re-reckoning and re-audited your stuff, and the stuff that you thought was cute from 2000 to 2010 that's in all sorts of movies, stuff from the 80s, or, from like the Pickup Artist, or from Dirty Dancing, or any of those things where you had these roles of men being like that, to 16 Candles, etc. Right. We've now done a re-audit, and all of those men are vile, bad, terrible, certainly rapists, to say the very least, and awful. All of those men, all of the people who are, many of them, influences on you, all of your sports stars are obviously the worst, etc. The gender itself, you're responsible for every bad thing that's ever happened historically. It was old white men. White men made the decision. I mean, keep white out of it. Just men made all of the decisions. Terrible, bad, terrible, bad, terrible, bad, terrible, bad. And, rather than even men are so awful that it's more important to us that rather than hire in crucial positions based on merit, we're going to do it based on somebody's sex anyway. No, even if the best person for the job is, no, we're doing it on sex. Yep, and we've done it to, and we're doing, airlines are hiring more women. No, we're going to hire more women. We're going to hire more. Well, just hire the best people. No, the value system's been changed. It's not a meritocracy anymore. If these guys are doing something, if they're out doing something.
Yeah.
And like doing something has changed a little bit. I gotta give a little bit of credit, not credit, but I used to give Matt Shearer, Matt is a guy who's in radio. I'm in radio, and Matt is 10 years younger than me. I think, probably more than 10 years, maybe 12 years. I'm not sure. Okay. So he was a generation younger than me, and he lived at his dad's house. We were both producers, and I was like, man, you loser. You're living at your dad's house. That's pathetic. But he was a nice millennial with a good attitude, really a nice guy, like a really decent guy. But I never stopped giving him bleep about it because he's living in his dad's house. His dad complained to him about Matt flushing condoms down the toilet because it was messing with the septic system. Whatever. It was a long, maybe. But anyway, and like that's the kind of thing his dad would say, Matt, come on. His dad didn't, see, he was allowed to have girls over and allowed to have sex and all that stuff. Just don't mess up with the septic system. So maybe that's the difference. Is like when I was a kid, at 17, you'd get away from your parents because they were the authoritarians that made life less fun. So you get the hell out of your house, get your own place, who cares what it is, and have fun. And that was my whole reason to be. After high school was just to go and be free. Start the Tom Shattuck period of my life where I'm not somebody's son and I'm going. But if these young kids now, if they have everything they need, they're allowed to have women over if they even sleep with women anymore. I don't know. Do men sleep around anymore? I don't know. We didn't have incels voluntarily when I was a young man,
Well, incel means involuntarily, but I think it's interesting too because I think that this does feed into that exact problem because all the women their age are at college and they're getting an education and they're getting, fancy jobs and the the marketing chick in New York with the college degree isn't dating the guy who's the landscaper. She probably should be, or the plumber, or certainly the plumber, or carpenter, and electrician. Like, they're going to have very solid career prospects. But, I think that there's this thing that happens to the dating pool when all the women are getting highly educated and a growing share of the men are not, which is that women don't want to date down, usually.
Class-wise.
Right. And I think that this was already happening sort of in my generation a little bit. Like, women already graduate high school at better rates. Like, there's still the pay gap, but a lot of the pay gap, and this is one thing that, like, no feminists who talk about the pay gap want to acknowledge. Most of the pay gap is driven by, like, things like mining and roofing and
working on an oil rig, that kind of thing. Yeah,
because they're like extremely dangerous jobs that women don't want that men are taking that pay a premium because they're extremely dangerous and they require a lot of skills that men have, like being really big and strong, and that's what's driving a lot of the pay gap stuff and careers like plumbers and things that aren't taken by women, because generally women who don't get college educated are taking jobs more like nannying, being a daycare worker, like and not these like really lucrative jobs. But women graduate high school at higher rates, they're graduating college at higher rates now, they're going into these careers. I know when my sister was in law school and was talking like researching all the like scholarships and stuff, and I was like, oh, are there any scholarships for being a woman or whatever, like, and she said no, there's none, because there's already more women than men in law school, and it's a problem they can't like even out the ratio. And so like and a lot of that is because our education system is very geared towards women's ways of being, right? Like a lot of it is like being organized and turning in the work on time. Like she was saying about like girls getting their transcripts in because they're like responsible and they want to get and I do think that there's like a thing where in particular our education system rewards very sort of feminine skills versus male skills. Like if it just purely we let kids into college purely on like raw math and engineering ability because we wanted to like have a really gifted like STEM generation, then I mean, I hate to say it, I love my gender, but we would not have as many women in those schools because it just doesn't, on average, doesn't tend to be the same. You know, women don't tend to have those sort of skills exactly. Like if you just wanted, you know, women, and because they don't want to, because women don't want to, obviously not all women, but like on average, there are fewer women who want to sit inside with a computer all day. Like or there are fewer women who want to mess around with model rockets all day. And like maybe it's because of how we socialize little girls or whatever. Like I don't know, that might be part of it, but I think that there's some innate stuff there.
I think there's innate stuff too, and people have tried to tell me that it's training and it's culture for whatever. And I think there's some of it, but I definitely
it might be a piece, but I think that you know that if we only were like rewarding like just math and engineering ability and drive, that we would not have the same problem that we have when we reward, you know, filling out lots of forms and getting things in on time and, you know, going through this like bureaucratic process. But that's like the type of reward system that we've set up in our whole education system. There's also no men in the whole education system from little kid onward. Like all the TikTok videos of the liberal teachers and everything. I mean, I think at our elementary school, there's like one male teacher at the whole elementary school. Like it especially at the younger ages, but then going on up, like, you know, it's very heavily female profession. So, you know, kids aren't seeing male role models in those roles. Again, because I think the whole system is set up not to play to boys' strengths.
I think, yeah, I guess so. I guess that makes sense, and and also I think it some vocations just would naturally not play to boys' strengths, but would naturally stifle a man's urges and responses. So I just think like as a teacher, if I walked into the class and the kid is like, if I said, okay, everybody, just pass in your homework, and the kid said to me like, oh, why don't you do it for me, B? Like my thinking would be, oh, okay, so I'm gonna destroy this kid in front of his friends and do whatever I can do right now to wreck his mind and hurt him. But I'm a guy, so that's fine. And it's much like, you know, I do talk radio, and there not many women do talk radio. Or not many really women, conservative talk radio. They can do NPR all day. That is absolutely, because nobody's getting hurt. But if you're doing talk radio, like really talk radio, at any given time, you are having thousands of people at any given moment think you are an absolute a-hole, who are like spending time thinking about you
and
being
an
an a-hole,
you.
and sometimes in text and tweeting you, etc., but sometimes just thinking it. What an absolute. And I think for a lot of women, they don't want to do. Women are pleasers a lot of times, and they don't want 5,000 people in a state thinking they're an absolute reprobate. You know.
But don't you think that's part of like why they're pushing so much social media censorship too? Is that like more and more there are women in these roles where they're exposed to that kind of like mass hate and
Totally.
they can't put up with it the way that men can. All the pylons that turn into a thing where like Twitter gets involved, like look at like Leslie Jones when she got attacked. That's how Milo Yiannopoulos got kicked off Twitter, because he goaded people into calling Leslie Jones names on Twitter. And,
right, when she did, which is...
But like anybody's gonna.
Well, it was actually, but that's a perfect thing because it's worth telling that entire story because of course Leslie Jones was in the remake of Ghostbusters,
right,
which goes to the point even more.
Right.
Don't have that. Ghostbusters was written and was acted by especially talented, depravity-based comics who were geniuses at the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's not something you can just jump right into and say, we're the Ghostbusters, too.
Especially if you're not funny.
Right.
Which is, like, the problem, and I know women get upset when you say, like, women comics aren't funny. But, like,
but
they can't take the heat. Then when you're a comedian and people yell at you on the internet and say you're not funny, I think most male comics have probably had their share of having a crowd be mean to them, too.
Oh, of course. Well, that's the whole point. It's like, okay, if you're not funny and you make a movie and it's bad, you at least better act like you're tough enough to take it. But she didn't. No, he yelled at me. It's like, no, you can't do that. But no, I don't. I hope that guys are doing something worthwhile. If they're not going, landscaping is a great. I hated landscaping. I did it for a while. And damn, man, my boss, who was my friend, but was a bastard, man, he loved just, as a boss, anyway, 6 a.m. every weekend morning, he'd wake me up at 6 a.m., and I was a teenager at the time. I'm like, are you kidding me? What the hell are we even... Yeah. And I'd get one Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee from him, and we would roll through the day. But it's great work, and it actually can be fun, too.
Mm-hmm. But I think, if those men go learn other skills and do stuff, and, even living at home can be fine if it's, if you're learning some sort of lucrative skill, which, I hope that they are. I certainly sometimes think about what outdoorsy building things type of skills might have been good to look for in a potential husband before.
Oh, yeah.
It's occurred to me.
No, believe me.
It's occurred to me that I may have miscalculated on that one score. But I think that I think that they'll probably be fine, a lot of them, but I also worry that like our society more and more is like not set up to value them in general. Or like things men are good at and do well, and that, I think that our whole system of like what we're rewarding is screwed up and
you're
weird.
right, but Alice, remember you went to a really you're from a really nice town. Mm-hmm. You went to a really nice high school that has its own glee club, for God's sakes, and
we had multiple acapella.
Oh yes,
acapella. We had like 8,
of course, and its own pool and this and that and that's...
We didn't have a pool. We used the Vokes pool, actually.
Well, there was a pool in town. Okay. And so did I. I went to Winchester High School. Mm-hmm. And at Winchester High School, you were either of a good, fine Winchester grade, or you were the kind of kid taking shop. Mm-hmm. And my brother took shop, trashy. Other dudes took shop. And the kids who take shop now are kids who know how to do stuff.
And a lot of them
I would never take a shop, but I was like, even though I was a flunky, I was
mm-hmm.
like, I'm not taking shop. I'm not one of those grease monkeys. Yeah.
Unfortunately for you, a lot of the people who took shop are the people who can still afford to live in Winchester because then they went on to have careers doing things that, pay them $100 an hour.
I'm going to be buried in a potter's field in a few years, and it's going to say, my gravestone, unmarked otherwise, will say, at least I didn't take shop. Meanwhile... Yeah, the mansions, etc., are going to be occupied
built by the people who went to the Vogue or took shop.
But that's
or
why
whatever.
it's so important. Yeah. I think it's great. Get out there and I would love our kids to get out into the world for a few years. Mm-hmm. Work. It doesn't have to be like I worked in hotels, and all over the place. So I had no business being around. Like I was working in Tennessee and in Nashville in a huge hotel and working with these dudes who were all sorts of crazy from all sorts of backgrounds, etc. It was entry-level weird grunts, so,
Yeah.
Entry-level idiots. I remember, like, half of them didn't make it through orientation. It's like, wow, you guys didn't make it through orientation. I am maybe not the best one of this, but I am maybe not the cream of the crop, but I didn't bring a gun to orientation, okay?
But I do think that, I think there are companies that are great to work for where you can go far just starting at the bottom and if you aren't an idiot. But I also think that, there are other paths. There are like apprenticeships and, night school at the Voc or whatever, or, there are things that you can do to gain life skills in fields where it doesn't matter what degree you have, just if you can do the thing, and I think that that's going to become more and more of a thing, especially as, kids in general, but especially boys are not going to college. I mean, I think they probably are right not to go to college because I think the people there hate them. The system is set up not to favor them. And unless you're doing something really specific, like going to become a doctor or, an engineer or something where that you're going to learn things that are actually skills, I don't think it's probably going to benefit you at all. I really don't. And I think that there are other paths. Like we have in Massachusetts, there's an agricultural high school that's kind of like a Voc, but like for being a farmer. The Essex Aggie. I would love if one of our kids went there and like learned how to do.
I would love them to go to a Voc for being a Voc.
Being anything, but
yes,
yeah.
anything.
I mean, I think that those kids end up better off and more prepared for the real world in so many ways that are like really positive. But I don't know.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Interesting cultural phenomenon.
I can tell you that. It's a different subject altogether. But way too many people go to college. Way too many people go to college. There's no reason to be at all in debt, unless obviously you're going to be an engineer, you're going to be a lawyer. If you know what you're going to do and be, and you need some accreditation to do it, you can do it. If you're going to F around for $50K a year for no good reason.
$50K would be cheap
right,
now.
Then don't
it's
do
like
it.
60
There's
or
no reason. Go out and prove yourself anyway. Anywhere. I'm telling you, man, you can walk into Fidelity Investments, as the mailroom attendant and be on a quicker track to a huge flowering success than many other people who are going to be sitting in college classrooms paying $100K whatever per year for years and years and years and years. And you'll have advantages. When you start low and you seep around the foundations of an institution, you hear things and see things that are very valuable, very valuable. And also, people a lot of times hate everybody else that are working around, including some of the competition, that they're happy to give a little guy a leg up, especially if you're in a cutthroat occupation. So we'll note the fact that you made light of the fact that I don't know how to do man stuff. That was somewhere around, I think... I was right around 47 minutes into the podcast, Alice. That's fine. We'll note that.
I don't know if I made light. I just said that, that you lucked out because I wasn't necessarily thinking about that when we started dating. I was also a little bit lied to by you.
Well, right. And that's what you have to do because I can't sell the actual me. I had to sell a fake me, which is something that men used to be proud of. And now it's considered some kind of... you're supposed to have a
You told me you did hunting at your house in Vermont.
Now that is an absolute brazen lie. That is.
You mean you shot frogs with a BB gun when you were a kid?
Exactly, and cried about it for a long time too. Exactly. No, absolutely. I had to use everything I could because you obviously as presented. Is not going to work for most men. Most men know that it's going to take a level of deception, obviously, to gather the affections of women because women are better, But what was that yesterday? What was that? Oh, that's right. You know what else? Some men are good at fixing machines. You call them machines, right? The loud things with engines and things, right? With etc. Some men are better at games of the mind, Alice, and use their cunning and
you do use your cunning. That's true about you.
Did you get the Gmail code yesterday, Alice? Did you? Tell the people that you got the.
No, I'm not talking.
Did you
about
get the code?
No. I'm not talking
and
about
did
our
I get
private
something?
lives.
Did I get something in? Was there a transaction made for a code?
I just needed your help to log into your Apple ID.
Exactly. So
okay.
Were you given the numbers that you needed?
Yes.
What was the other part of the transaction?
I'll let you tell people.
No, we can't. Actually, that would be the end. We'd certainly be kicked off of something, and I believe me. But it's not what you think. But guys, it's in the ballpark. All right. So that is that. By the way, it was classy. Believe me. Don't worry about it. So don't everybody at ease. Okay. At ease. It was classy.
We have a very, very normal and functional.
That's right. Just DM me, guys.
Just a very functional marriage.
Yes, absolutely. You know what? Some wives have never would just get the code without the extortion. It's really okay. All right, Alice, I'm ready to go. Joe, it's Monday already.
Happy Labor Day, baby.
Happy Labor Day, baby. Absolutely. All right. Hit my thing.
Thank you so much, everybody. You can follow us on Twitter at Burn Barrel Pod. He's at Tom Shattuck. I'm at Alice Shattuck. We're also at burnbarrelpodcast.com, facebook.com/burnbarrel. If you want like more and different content and stuff, we're on burnbarrel.locals.com and patreon.com/burnbarrel. We also have an email address if you need to send us something that way. It's burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com.
C'est la vie.